April 1945. Southern Germany. The war is already lost, even if no one dares to say it out loud. Inside a temporary American prisoner enclosure, nothing more than barbed wire, muddy ground, and the smell of smoke, a group of German women prisoners of war stand in silence. Their uniforms are worn. Their faces are hollow. Their eyes empty in a way only years of war can carve into a human being. They are nurses, clerks, signal operators. Some were secretaries. Some were wives who never chose a uniform at all. An American officer approaches with an interpreter. He does not shout. He does not threaten. He does not accuse. He delivers a simple statement. Our units are distributing food to German civilian children in nearby villages. The words take a moment to register. Then something happens that no one expects. One woman's knees buckle. Another drops to the ground. Hands cover her face. A third whispers a single word. Kinder, children. They fall. Not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from shame, disbelief, and unbearable relief. Because everything they were taught said this was impossible. And because somewhere beyond the wire, German children, their children, are eating American bread. This is not a story about kindness erasing war. It is a story about how truth destroys lies. And how, in the ruins of the worst conflict in human history, humanity survived in the most unexpected place. World War II did not begin with tanks. It began with fear. After World War I, Germany was a defeated nation forced to kneel. Its economy collapsed. Its people starved. Pride dissolved into bitterness. The Treaty of Versailles did more than redraw borders. It planted a deep wound in the German soul. Democracy felt weak. Hope felt fake. And when people feel cornered, they listen to anyone who promises strength. Adolf Hitler understood this better than anyone. He offered certainty in a world of chaos. Enemies to blame that a future painted in bold, violent lines. Slowly, methodically, Germany was transformed into a machine that no longer questioned itself. Propaganda flooded schools, newspapers, radio broadcasts. The message was clear. Germany is surrounded by enemies. The Allies want German children to starve. Americans are brutal, immoral, and cruel. By the time the first German troops crossed into Poland in 1939, millions were already convinced the war was not aggression. It was survival. And when war comes, it consumes everyone, including women. The early years brought terrifying speed. Poland collapsed, France fell, Europe shook. The sound of war became constant. Sirens, artillery, aircraft engines slicing through the sky. German women were mobilized in ways previous wars had never demanded. They became military nurses, air raid wardens, communications auxiliaries, clerical staff of the Wehrmacht. Not all were Nazis, not all resisted, most simply obeyed. And obedience in wartime can be fatal. As Allied bombers began flattening German cities, women pulled children from rubble, scraped burned bodies from streets, and watched homes vanish in minutes. Food grew scarce. Milk disappeared first, then bread, then hope. Children learned hunger before multiplication. Mothers learned silence. By 1943, Germany was bleeding. Stalingrad was not just a defeat. It was a psychological execution. Entire armies vanished. In North Africa, German forces surrendered by the hundreds of thousands. In Italy, Allied troops pushed north. And then came June 6, 1944. Normandy. The Western Front exploded open. American, British, and Canadian forces poured into Europe with overwhelming force. The myth of German invincibility shattered. Inside Germany, reality could no longer be hidden. Bombed out cities, mass graves, endless funerals. Women wrote letters that never received replies. Children waited for fathers who would never return. And still, the propaganda continued. Fight on. Final victory. Enemy barbarism. The lie demanded obedience, even as the nation collapsed. By 1945, Germany was starving, not metaphorically, literally. Children collapsed in schoolyards. Old men traded furniture for potatoes. Mothers boiled water and called it soup. The Allied advance brought terror and also opportunity. Civilians fled west. desperate to surrender to Americans instead of Soviets, whose reputation for revenge was whispered in fear-filled nights. Among the chaos were German women attached to military units, swept up during mass surrenders. They expected punishment. They expected hatred. They expected death. Instead, they were processed, searched, registered, guarded, and then something strange began to happen. American soldiers, many barely out of their teens, started giving food to civilians, not selectively, not secretly, openly, children first. The German female POWs did not see this at first. They heard rumors, whispers through fences, fragments of conversations between guards. Then confirmation. An interpreter relayed the information plainly. Our command has ordered emergency feeding stations for German children. No triumph in his voice, no mockery, just a fact. For these women, the psychological impact was devastating. Everything they had been taught told them Americans wanted German children to suffer. That starvation was Allied policy. That mercy was weakness. Yet here was proof. Milk, bread, soup, given freely to enemy children. Some women reacted with anger, others with disbelief. But many broke. One former nurse later recalled, "I felt my knees give way. I could not stand anymore. The weight of what we had believed crushed me. They did not fall because Americans were kind. They fell because they had been lied to for years, and the truth was unbearable." This was not a fairy tale. American soldiers were not perfect. Some were angry. Some were cruel. Some carried deep hatred for Germany. They had seen concentration camps. They had buried friends. They had marched through death. But military policy was clear. Children were not the enemy. The U.S. Army's relief efforts, often improvised, underfunded, and emotionally exhausting, saved thousands of German children from starvation. This was not generosity without cost. Soldiers gave away their own rations. They broke regulations. They looked away when civilians approached. Many said the same thing. Kids are kids. On May 7th, 1945, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. There were no celebrations in Germany, only silence. Cities lay in ruins. Families were shattered, and the truth began to surface. Concentration camps, mass murder, industrial genocide. For many German women, the knowledge was crushing. They had been victims of war, but also citizens of a regime that committed unspeakable crimes. There was no clean ending, only survival. The female POWs were eventually released, repatriated to a homeland that barely existed. Some returned to find their children alive, thanks in part to food given by former enemies. That knowledge stayed with them forever. The moment those women fell to their knees was not weakness. It was an awakening. War thrives on lies. It survives by turning people into symbols. Enemies, targets, statistics. But when an American soldier hands bread to a German child, the lie collapses. And when a mother learns that her enemy fed her child instead of starving them, the war loses something it can never reclaim, its moral certainty. This story matters today because wars still begin the same way, with fear, with propaganda, with dehumanization. And they still end the same way, with children paying the price. The question history leaves us is not who won World War II. It is this: when the lies fall apart, will there still be enough humanity left to stand? Or will we, like those women, only realize the truth when our knees finally hit the ground?